Hi and welcome. I'm Lisa Rangel with Chameleon Resumes, the premier executive resume writing company, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about how to showcase short-term jobs as an executive. In a down market, you may be in a position where you have to consider taking some short-term work, and it's totally okay, totally normal. I did it in 2009 when I was laid off. I took two consulting assignments doing recruiting projects. And, it helped me solidify that I wanted to do the Chameleon Resumes business. And those are contacts for those particular recruiting gigs that I did, short-term recruiting gigs that I did, that I still have those contacts today. So if you are in the position of considering taking a short-term gig as an executive, it's absolutely okay. And it absolutely can parlay into your next full-time gig and or give you the connections that will parlay you into your next full-time gig. And let's face it, it could be a financial bridge that helps you then evaluate your full-time gigs from a position more of equity and not from desperation. So I think it's a win-win when you are looking at short-term gigs. So that's number one. And what we're going to talk about today in just a few minutes that we're here are what to do on your interview, some ideas of what to do on your interview, as well as what to do on your resume. So first, I want to combat the misnomer that those with multiple or even one short-term gig are less loyal as employees. And I think there is nothing more false than that. And I'll tell you why. I believe that short-term gig employees typically are some of the most loyal people. And there's such a hidden gem of talent in this pool of candidates. And here's why. So when I was a recruiter, part of what I did was run a recruiting desk, and I ran a recruiting practice that placed temporary employees at all different levels, from accounting clerks up to, international tax specialists, at several $100s an hour. And this was, 15 years ago or so, 10, 15 years ago. So I will tell you that if somebody is committing to a 9-month assignment, what happens typically is their interviewing goes by the wayside. And so when that assignment ends, and it's not often very clear when it will end, what will happen is when that assignment eventually ends, the person in the job, the consultant, does not have something full-time lined up typically. They haven't been interviewing because they've been wanting to keep to their word that they will stay to the length of this assignment. So what they do then is they take another temporary assignment. And in the consulting temporary contract world, and you can use any of those terms to call this work, different names, they tend to go into what we call a contract rut or a consulting rut or a temp rut, in that they just can't really get out of the cycle of an assignment ending, not having something full-time lined up, so they take the next contract role. But typically, for those people to be in that rut, they are loyal and not interviewing during that consulting time because they don't want to get a job before the end of the consulting assignment and then leave before the consulting assignment's up. Now, some of you may be like, oh my God, for a temp job, I would never do that. I'm going to totally take a full-time job and just leave the temp job. And you know what? You're entitled to that opinion. But to say that someone who stays in that job for the 9 months isn't loyal is really incorrect, right? Because they are sticking to their word and they are staying for the remaining of the 9-month assignment, or if it goes a little longer, or if it unfortunately goes shorter than anticipated, then they're stuck. And what they do is they take the next temp role to keep that financial continuity. So to call this pool of candidates unloyal, I think is completely inaccurate. So that's number one. And that's how you're going to showcase it on your interview. When someone thinks that you're not loyal, you're going to show how you kept to your word. And that actually makes you loyal in the context of a short-term assignment. The second is, how do you handle it on your resume? I say, if you've had multiple assignments or even one, is to group them together. You treat it as an employment entry and, outline where you did the consulting assignment, where was the client site, and depict the fact that you were employed through an agency. So make sure that you have that outlined on the resume. But if you have multiple short-term assignments, I suggest grouping them together and make each client site or each client assignment its own bullet under one employment entry. And this way it doesn't look jumpy. In fact, it looks like an agency or an employment service, staffing agency, is continually placing you at their clients, which shows continuity in and of itself. And if you are able to go from one assignment to the next, frankly, that shows resiliency. That shows your ability to get up and running with often little to no training or onboarding. And this is how you're going to convey that on your resume and then ultimately on an interview. You group them together. That's how you depict your short-term gigs in a positive way on your resume. And then once you're on the interview, I already gave you some pointers on loyalty in tip 1, but in tip 2, you're going to show how if you have been placed consistently in subsequent positions, subsequent temporary roles or consulting roles or contract roles, again, you can use those names somewhat interchangeably for most people, you're going to show how resilient you are. And that's the positive trait you want to depict in going into an interview. The third thing I want to talk about is sometimes how recruiters can take advantage of people who have considered or done short-term assignments. And I'm really obviously not a fan of this, and I don't like it when recruiters do this, but you need to be aware that it happens. Sometimes recruiters, and this is usually third-party recruiters that are placing you into the temporary consulting or contract assignments, although it can happen directly with a firm, with a corporate recruiter, they're going to sometimes try to use this tactic to make you feel bad. They're going to make you feel like people didn't want you because you're not working. They're going to try to say to you that you should take less money because it's contract, when actually it's the opposite. And I'm going to get to that in the fourth point. But being unemployed is not a negative trait. It is just simply a state of employment. That's it, right? It's a state of where you're at in your career, and it can change at any point. And so the key is to always create leverage. And the leverage you have as someone who is not working, that is being considered for a short-term gig, is that most full-time employees, and you would know this since you've been a full-time employee at some point, are not going to leave a full-time employment gig to take a temp job. So you have leverage in that they don't have a lot of people to pick from. The fact that you're willing to take it and probably can start quickly is leverage you have. So make sure that you do not let a recruiter take advantage of you or make you think that you are not wanted, because as someone who is not working and available to take something short-term and available to start that short-term gig quickly and then give your word that you're going to stay through the length of that assignment, that is leverage. So again, it's all about how you position it. So don't let a recruiter take advantage of you. And the fourth point, as I started to mention in point 3, is a recruiter may think that or convey to you that you should be taking less because you're on a short-term contract gig. And I'm here to tell you that in most cases, it's actually the opposite. If you're doing a short-term gig, again, you're in a pool of candidates that's very tiny. There are fewer people that want to take short-term gigs for the obvious reasons that we've just talked about, and some others that we are not going to have time to talk about here. So you have your own leverage. And if you are getting paid only a salary, or only an hourly rate that should be equal, if not more, than what your current normal full-time salary should be, then if you're not getting benefits, or if you have to pay a ton more money for the benefits that they offer, because typically staffing agency benefits aren't going to be as good as regular employer benefits. If you're not getting your 401k contribution, if you're not getting some of the perks that are offered working for a regular employer, but you're getting some perks through a staffing agency, if any. Sometimes you're not offered a lot of perks, or they're very unaffordable perks through a staffing agency. Then you should be able to negotiate that up front to get a higher hourly rate. So this way it's all equal, and it takes away some of the risk that you are engaging in by taking in a short-term gig. And the risk being that you don't have the security of stability, right? You only have employment for the next 9 months, and you're committing to it, so you can't even interview that readily. So that's leverage. So wherever you are at in your positioning, remember, everything has leverage. And if it's not apparent to you, then you should use an advisor, someone like us, that can help you come up with the leverage that you have. So no matter how much you may feel that you are backed into a corner, you can still come out with leverage and negotiate the best possible scenario for you, whether you are doing a contract role or a full-time role. And I'm going to show you how you can depict this arrangement in your resume. If you want to go to my next free executive resume writing training, go to freeexecresumetraining.com and sign up for my free training. One of the before and after examples that I have in there is how to handle your resume when you have multiple consulting assignments. I'm going to show you how it should look, and this way you will not look jumpy, because we know what that's, even though that shouldn't be a thing, we know it's a thing. But then it's obviously the training is suitable for all different types of employment scenarios, how to get, if you've been promoted, how to depict it on your resume. If you've had a number of short-term gigs, again, how to position that on your resume. If your company has been bought out, how to position that on your resume. So again, it's all about whatever your situation is, promoting you in the right light on both your interview and your resume. But this next training, I'm going to start with the resume. So go to freeexecresumetraining.com, sign up for my next free training, and I'll look forward to seeing you there. And if this video has helped you, I'm going to ask you to share it. If you know someone who might benefit from this, I'm going to ask you to forward it to them. Subscribe to the channel so this way you do not miss next week's video. If you have any comments or questions, I know this was a lot packed into one video, a little longer than I normally do. Feel free to comment below or DM me. I do my best to read and reply to every email, comment, and DM. And my email address is lr@chameleonresumes.com. And again, if you like this video, don't forget to like it. So look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks for sticking around, because again, I know this was a little longer than the norm. And have a great day.